Something is breaking inside millions of Americans right now, and it's not just the economy. It's their ability to care, their drive, their joy. And you feel it too, don't you? The things that used to matter just don't anymore. Interest is gone. Motivation is gone. Purpose? What purpose? Over 63% of Americans now say they feel emotionally numb at least 3 days a week. That's not burnout, that's collapse. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly why it's happening and what it's doing to all of us. The digital disconnection. That's replacing real life. You ever open your phone to check one thing and an hour disappears? That's not an accident. That's the algorithm. That's a billion-dollar attention economy that's found a way to hijack your biology. But the real tragedy? It's not just that we're spending time on screens, it's that we're slowly forgetting how to live off of them. Americans are losing interest in hobbies, in friendships, in even going outside, because the brain simply can't compete with the hyper-stimulation of digital life. We've gone from doom scrolling to something even worse, numb scrolling, just flicking through videos and images without absorbing any of it. And while the short-term effect is distraction, the long-term consequence is disengagement. You stop reaching out to friends. You stop going on walks. You stop creating. A 2025 Pew Research survey found that over 45% of Americans under the age of 35 say they no longer feel excitement for their own interests. Think about that. Not even sadness, just absence, emptiness. And it makes sense, because we're constantly being overstimulated and undernourished. And when life itself feels like a dull background noise compared to TikTok or Reddit or YouTube, people disengage. But here's the kicker. Tech platforms know this. Their goal isn't to improve your life, it's to occupy it, to colonize your attention. And they've succeeded. The average American now spends over 7 hours a day on screens, more time than they sleep. But what are we getting in return? Nothing that touches our soul. Nothing that makes us feel alive. We've replaced human conversation with comment sections. We've replaced the beauty of the outdoors with Instagram reels of people pretending to go outside. So no wonder Americans are losing interest in everything when every dopamine hit is engineered, but none of it is real. The more we feed the algorithm, the more it takes from us. And at a certain point, there's just nothing left. No spark, no passion, just screen glow and silence. The collapse of local community and the rise of isolation culture. Let's be honest. We don't know our neighbors anymore. And that matters more than people realize. America wasn't just built on rugged individualism, it was built on communities. You had the diner, the corner store, the park, the church, the block party. Not anymore. Over the last 30 years, America has gone through what sociologists call communal deflation, where shared spaces, public trust, and local institutions have all quietly vanished. And it's left millions in a psychological wasteland. A 2024 Gallup poll found that 58% of Americans say they feel lonely or socially disconnected most of the week. That's the majority of the country walking around with no meaningful ties to the people around them. And it's not just an emotional issue, it's a health crisis. Chronic loneliness increases your risk of early death by 29%. It's as deadly as smoking 15 cigarettes a day, according to the U.S. Surgeon General. But when was the last time you saw a government campaign to fix loneliness? When was the last time you saw zoning reform to promote walkable neighborhoods, or funding to rebuild local centers where people actually meet? Instead, we've built entire lives around isolation. Suburbs where you drive 30 minutes for groceries. Cities where no one makes eye contact. Jobs where the only communication is Slack messages. And it's killing our interest in the very fabric of life. Why start a garden if there's no one to share the harvest with? Why join a group if you move every 2 years for work? Why invest in community when it feels like community doesn't exist anymore? This disconnection is at the core of why Americans are checking out. We weren't built to live like this. We're social creatures. We need the random joys, the awkward potlucks, the borrowed sugar. But now everything is privatized and fenced off. No front porches, no block clubs, no neighborhood rituals, just individuals, isolated, overstimulated, and silently wondering why life feels so gray. This isn't a coincidence. It's the direct result of decades of policies that prioritized profit over people, efficiency over connection. And now we're seeing the fallout. People aren't just sad, they're disenchanted, because a life without community doesn't feel like life at all. The new American apathy, when even outrage stops working. There's something terrifying happening in this country, and it's not just anger, it's fatigue. Americans aren't even mad anymore. They're exhausted, and that's worse. When the Supreme Court hands down another life-altering decision, when rent spikes 30% in a single year, when your job demands more for less, the reaction isn't rage, it's a shrug. Of course it's like this. That's the real danger. When injustice becomes expected, people stop fighting, they stop dreaming, they stop caring, and that's what's spreading across America in 2026. A kind of low-grade civic burnout. Apathy isn't just passivity, it's defense. When you can't fix anything, you stop feeling anything. A 2025 Axios Ipsos poll found that 72% of Americans believe no matter who's in office, nothing changes. And they're not wrong. We've been through 20 years of promises, slogans, fake hope. And what did we get? Student debt still crushing 44 million people. Wages that haven't kept up with inflation since the 1970s, healthcare bills that bankrupt 1 in 5 households, and after a while, that kind of systemic betrayal turns into numbness. It's not that people don't care, it's that caring costs too much. It's a luxury now. You want to organize, protest, fight back? Sure. But after work, after childcare, after your second gig. So instead, people emotionally check out. They stop voting. They stop reading the news. They stop talking politics. Because what's the point? They've been told the system is broken. But more importantly, they've been shown that they can't fix it. This is the new form of oppression. Not through fear, but through fatigue. And it's working. More Americans than ever are retreating into their own heads, their own screens, their own worlds. Because the real world, it just hurts too much. So when you wonder why you're not excited about anything anymore, why nothing seems worth it, know that it's not just you. It's the weight of a broken system pressing down on all of us. And the scariest part? Most people don't even scream anymore. They just go silent. The slow death of purpose in the workplace. There was a time not long ago when your job could give you a sense of identity, even pride. You could be a craftsman, a teacher, a nurse, a machinist, and that meant something. It connected you to your community, to your own growth, to the future. But in today's economy, your job isn't a mission. It's a transaction. It's clocking in to survive. And millions of Americans are waking up every morning with this crushing feeling. What's the point of all this? According to a 2025 Gallup Workplace report, nearly 69% of U.S. workers say they feel disengaged from their jobs. That's not laziness. That's a systemic problem. The modern workplace has become mechanical, isolating, soulless, especially for those stuck in low-wage labor or faceless digital jobs. And even for the so-called knowledge workers, things aren't much better. Endless Zoom calls, tasks that don't matter, metrics that dehumanize. Every day becomes a blur of input with no real output, no satisfaction, no forward movement. Even passion jobs, education, healthcare, the arts have been corporatized to the point where workers feel like cogs in a broken machine. Teachers spend more time filling out paperwork than actually teaching. Nurses are being timed on patient care. Creators are told to follow algorithms instead of inspiration. So it's no wonder that people are losing interest. Because how do you stay engaged in a system that doesn't value your humanity? In fact, more people than ever are openly questioning whether they were sold a lie. Follow your dreams, they were told, but now those dreams are trapped behind a paywall. It's demoralizing to know that no matter how hard you work, the ladder's been greased. And when the climb has no end, people let go. Quiet quitting wasn't a trend, it was a warning sign. A signal that people were withdrawing emotionally and mentally from systems that exploit them. Because when your labor produces nothing you're proud of, and when your paycheck barely covers rent, the fire goes out. Slowly. quietly, until all you feel is exhaustion, until the idea of doing anything extra building, innovating, caring feels absurd. And that's when the lights go dim, not just at work, but in life. The crisis of the American mind: attention, memory, and meaning. If you've been feeling like you can't focus anymore, like your brain is foggy, your memory's shot, your attention is fractured, you're not imagining it, you're living through what neurologists are now calling the cognitive recession. And it's sweeping across the U.S. like a silent epidemic. A 2026 report from the NIH warns that Americans are experiencing a 20% decline in working memory and sustained attention compared to just a decade ago. What's causing it? A toxic blend of stress, sleep deprivation, digital overload, and poor nutrition, all symptoms of a society running on empty. Americans are sleeping less than any other developed nation, with over 35% reporting fewer than 6 hours per night. Combine that with ultra-processed food, which now makes up over 60% of the average American's diet, and the result is neurological burnout. But it's not just the body that's tired, it's the soul. In a world that bombards us with headlines, crises, updates, and notifications every minute, the brain has no room to rest, to reflect, to form deep connections. That's why reading a book feels impossible. That's why you forget why you walked into the kitchen. That's why even conversations feel like a chore. We are drowning in information and starving for meaning. And when your mind is constantly in survival mode, constantly switching tasks, fighting fatigue, buffering from overload, you lose the ability to care. You want to get back into painting, or gardening, or reading, or learning. But your brain says, not today, not now. It's too much. And over time, that resistance becomes apathy. The joy of discovery fades. The curiosity withers. Even things that once sparked joy, music, friendships, hobbies, feel like they take too much energy. So you retreat. Not because you're lazy, but because you're fried. Americans aren't just losing interest because they're bored, they're losing interest because they're neurologically under siege. And when even your own brain doesn't feel like a safe place anymore, where do you go? What do you do? That's the quiet terror of this moment. We're not just burned out, we're breaking down, and no one is coming to fix it. The vanishing future. Why hope feels like a joke now. People stop caring about the present when they can't see a future. And right now, the American future feels like a vanishing point. Ask anyone under 40 what they think their life will look like in 10 years. A home, a family, a decent retirement. Most won't even pretend to believe that's realistic. According to the 2025 U.S. Census Pulse survey, 68% of young adults believe they'll never achieve financial stability. That's not pessimism. That's realism in today's America. Home prices have doubled in a decade, student debt still haunts 44 million borrowers, and the cost of childcare is now higher than most mortgages. Even Gen X and boomers are quietly panicking. Retirement dreams have crumbled under inflation. 401ks have been gutted by market volatility. And Medicare? Don't count on it. The result? A nationwide sense of temporal collapse. The timeline's broken. Goals don't feel achievable, and that has a devastating psychological effect. Hope isn't some fluffy emotion, it's a biological motivator. Without it, we shut down. When the future shrinks, so does our willingness to try. Why plant roots if the soil is poisoned? Why build anything when the foundation keeps cracking? Why care about tomorrow when every today feels like survival mode? This is the core of the crisis. Americans aren't lazy. They're disillusioned. They've played by the rules, chased the dream, done the work, and still ended up with nothing to show for it. That kind of betrayal doesn't just breed anger, it breeds detachment. And when you feel like the next 5 years are just going to be more struggle, more debt, more disappointment, it's only natural to stop investing energy into anything. The system didn't just fail to deliver the dream, it erased the horizon. And now millions are wandering through life without direction, without purpose, without interest. Not because they don't want to care, but because caring hurts. And hope, in America today, feels like a setup for pain. You're not crazy for feeling disconnected. You're not weak for feeling numb. You're just waking up in a country that doesn't feel like it's yours anymore. But losing interest in everything? That's not the end. That's the signal. That's your system saying this isn't working anymore. And you have a choice: stay in survival mode or build something real for yourself before this apathy becomes permanent. If you're still here, you already know this message was meant for you, so don't let it go. Hit like, subscribe, drop a comment and tell me where you're at mentally. Because even if the system doesn't care, we do, and we're not done yet.